Welcome to my presentation on platform-moderated data collection. I am Weinhardt, a postdoc in the research project Entrepreneurial Group Dynamics, which is based at Technische Universität Berlin and funded by the Volkswagen Foundation. I would like to discuss our experiences of combining data sources through a crowd science approach. We, that is my co-authors Isabel Stamm, who is the head of the research group, Johannes Lindenau, and myself. In the picture you can also see Marie Gutzeit and Steffen Hett, who are also involved in the project. I'm going to talk today about data collection through didactic crowd science. So what do we mean by didactic crowd science? This is a combination of online learning and crowd science, and where the two overlap, as you can see in the middle of the graph. Online learning can be understood as the use of the internet to access learning materials, to interact with the content, instructor and other learners, and to obtain support during the learning process, whereas by crowd science we understand the engagement of a wide base of potential contributors who are not professional scientists into the process of conducting and or analyzing research data. So on the one hand, online learning allows students to gain a reflective understanding of scientific tasks and real-world research problems. On the other hand, crowd science gives the option to collect data and combine data out of the reach of automated data collection. To give you a bit of a background on our research group, we have the aim to identify social relationships among entrepreneurial group members, and we want to investigate typical paths of development and transition points, such as member entries and exits in such entrepreneurial groups. The starting point is a core data set based on administrative register data, and this allows us to identify entrepreneurial groups at the time of new registration and then to track changes within the group over time. It contains, however, only limited information on the social relations between the group members. So to fill this gap, we devised a crowd science task that asks participants to research information on company websites, in news articles and predefined cases of entrepreneurs in order to enrich our overall data set. The information about the social relationships of the group members at the time of founding is essential for our research interest. So here come our research questions. We know only very little about the particular challenges of this approach. It's fit to different research questions and different types of data. So we ask, under what conditions can online learning and crowd science be combined to didactic crowd science? What are the opportunities and challenges of this approach to collect data from multiple data sources? And today we want to discuss the pragmatic challenges of setting up a multi-purpose online platform and their methodological implications for extracting and combining information from different data sources. To implement our crowd science approach, we set up the DATENSPUREN project from 2017 to 2019. We had multiple goals in mind. First, exploring this new combination of online learning and crowd science. Second, collecting data for our ongoing research on entrepreneurial groups. The platform's technical implementation proved to be a major technical challenge, however. Due to the complex requirements of our enterprise, we found no usable ready-made software solution which fit these requirements fully. Hence, eventually we went with a panel tool for online surveys that covered at least a subset of the desired functionality. However, some function of this software solution had to be specially adapted to our goals and purposes. Ultimately, workarounds were found by creatively using the options provided by the software. Still, the technical possibilities proved to be limiting. We would have liked to make the website more dynamic, for example, than was possible within this particular platform environment. So we set up our own crowd science platform for online learning, task distribution and storage of the collected information. Initially, participants had to register to gain access to the site. As a first step, they were introduced to a 45-minute online training on the methodology of process-generated data. The content conveyed during 5 short instructional videos was also the subject of 2 short tests on the topic. 7 questions were asked in the first quick test and 9 in the second, which all aimed at monitoring the learning success during this online unit. After completion of the unit, participating students could then engage in the research task, and we also included a gamification element on the platform where contributors could collect points by completing tasks for us and could win actual prizes. Here's a bit more background on the implementation of the online learning session. There's always already a didactic element in crowd science, and the participation in such projects can be a valuable learning experience in itself. We strengthen this element through an online teaching format in combination with the crowd science task. This first sensitizes participants to the research process and its context, and second qualifies participants for the task at hand. Such an online teaching unit allows, at least in theory, to maintain the inherent demand for scalability and fits into the corresponding digital platform environment. In order to qualify the crowd, in our case students in the social sciences across Germany, we offered a 45-minute online training on the methodology of process-generated data. This content, the process-produced data, sometimes also known as archival data or social bookkeeping data, and also their relevance for social science research, was presented during this online session. Students gained insights into the variety of process data such as websites and newspaper articles, and learned to evaluate the quality of different data sources. After completing the training course, students could enter an additional section of the platform containing the actual research tasks. Students could choose between groups of easy, medium, or difficult research tasks, while each individual task was then assigned at random. Just to remind you, our research goal was to collect information about the social relationships among entrepreneurs at the time of the founding of their company, for example, whether they had been relatives or friends beforehand. We asked participants to research using different sources which were available online, company websites and newspaper articles. For the latter, we provided access to a digital newspaper archive, something that also had to be administered. Overall, the research task was relatively complex and required specific skills in using online search tools and scanning the respective sources for information. Some kind of interpretive ability in the evaluation of source material was therefore necessary as well. Even in times of big data, automation of such a task would only have been possible to a limited extent due to non-standardized formats of the sources and the need to interpret the data. That was also our reason why we chose a crowd science approach for this task. In the task description, participants were provided with the following information taken from administrative register data, the names of the entrepreneurs, as well as the name of the company related to the group of entrepreneurs. The research task specifically entailed first identifying the respective company's website, if existent, using standard web search engines and checking for subpages where the company presents information about itself and the persons involved. Second, it entailed searching for newspaper articles related to the company in an online newspaper archive, and we specifically provided access to a commercial database for this purpose. Third, we asked to document the research process, that is, recording the URLs of websites and newspaper articles used during the research. Phase 1 of the data collection ran from January through to March 2019, and lecturers at 12 universities beyond the TU Berlin agreed to announce the project in their course as a voluntary additional offer. Eventually, a total of 44 students registered, 12 of whom completed the online teaching unit, including the test, and from this group 6 people actually took on to research tasks for us. In the second phase, which ran from May to July 2019, lecturers at a dozen universities again announced our project as a voluntary additional offer. One of the lecturers has made our offer mandatory as part of their course. In the period from May to July, 52 people registered to participate, and 39 of them eventually researched tasks for our research purpose. The participants in both phases were predominantly students of sociology and social work and came from overall 11 different universities. A total of 300 cases of entrepreneurial groups were researched, and yes, overall participation was lower than envisaged as we hoped for. But still there's a sizable amount of cases that had been researched. Just to recap quickly the requirements of a multi-purpose platform as we try to set it up. First, you have an element of participant administration. People have to register. You have to communicate with them. You have to assign roles and user rights on their status. Maybe, for example, whether they have already finished the test on the online learning section or not. And then you have the online learning section. That means you have a section where you show your training videos. You maybe have a test and a quiz to see the results. Then you also have research component where the tasks need to be assigned to the participants, and you also need to collect and store the data, which is obviously very important. And you might also want to provide access to multiple data sources through the platform directly. And finally, there might also be an element of gamification. So, for example, we provided points for research tasks that were completed, and then there was a scoreboard where people could compare each other as to how many points they had, and there was even a competition and the possibility to win prizes. But there's also other options potentially to involve respondents more into the project. Don't know, by providing badges and personalized avatars, but also maybe even group interaction in the group chat that people might find interesting and motivating. Finally, we would like to reflect on the pragmatic challenges that we faced when we implemented our approach and the consequences which might follow from that. First, regarding the online learning unit, overall there was a positive evaluation of the learning experience by the participants. Students rather liked what they had learned and how this was approached. That is what we gathered from some interviews that we did following the project. But there's also a trade-off. There's only so much you can learn within a short amount of time that was available for the online session, but also the learning potential by doing the crowdsourcing task is somewhat limited. Even it's an important aspect of this approach, we think. Then also we had certain elements of gamification within our platform approach, but it was limited. We were limited by what we could do and what was technically possible, and therefore we think that we did not use the full potential of gamification, which might increase participation but also the user experience of the participants. So additional elements that focus more on active participation in the research project instead of purely collecting points for the research task and being a member in a competition among other participants is something that we would like to achieve if we were to do that again. So regarding the research component, first there's the collection and storage of the data, and here it's important to design a user-friendly data entry form. That's where the people and the participants enter the data, because if this works smoothly and fine, then people will be motivated to come back and do more work and work more on research tasks. And then there's also the other aspect of task assignment. The functional implementation of the selection of the tasks according to the level of difficulty and the random assignment to the participants in our case was a major technical challenge. It was not provided for in the normal functionality of the survey software that we had. So therefore this is something that would need to be developed in future applications. What's nice, however, in general is that you have the chance to assign a task twice or 3 times to different people as a way of checking the quality of the data that has been collected. Overall, there's no single platform solution available where you can combine online learning and data collection via a CROWDSCIENCE approach. But we think insofar as our approach is suitable to other research areas as well, and we think it is, it might be worthwhile to have combined effort to create such a solution, to have a platform available where you can combine these 2 aspects and collect data through such an approach. So this was already the end of my presentation. I would be very happy to hear comments on our approach and to discuss the potentials of an online platform for crowd science in the social sciences with you. Thank you very much.